Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Padawan podcast, the Apocaflix movies, all Star Wars podcast, where we are breaking down everything from the galaxy far, far away. I'm your host, Jake Berlin, aka Qui-Gon Jake, and today we are focusing on the High Republic. That is right. I know it's been quite a while since the announcement was made, but we have not talked about it yet on the channel, and we are doing today to do so. And that is strictly just because we had a series of shows going on the last couple weeks, and we finally have the time. And so we're going to be diving into a couple different things, and that has to do with favorite things that came from the announcement, what we're looking forward to from the entire thing that's happening, diving into some things that we may be running into with theories and speculations and stuff like that. It's just going to be a nice, fun, relaxed conversation, and our thoughts, because, again, we haven't given them. It is not just me doing that today, but it is not all the panel members today. It is Mr. Grant Admirosino is joining me. Brian Adlosino, how are you doing, man?
Not too bad. Finally talking about this. I've been waiting for this.
I think we all have, but we had our obligation with the series of our Skywalker saga moments we had to kind of dedicate to, and we finally have a show to do so, and it's not too far after.
No.
And I mean, we have a long time to talk about this anyway, so it'll be fun.
Yeah, I'm ready to go.
Cool. So like I mentioned, it's been over a month since this was officially announced, so I'm not going to run over the major details or anything. By now, if you're watching the show, more than likely you know what the High Republic is, and you've done your own research. And so we're just going to pose a couple questions, and those are our favorite reveal / standout from the announcement, and what we're looking forward to the most in the era of the High Republic, now that we officially know what it is and what will be happening. And so we're going to start with the announcement part of it, because obviously the announcement took place at like 7:30 at night, and information was essentially just being thrown at you. It was everywhere. And we were on Twitter. We were trying to catch up on it as much as we could, but there was just so much being thrown at us. And so there's a lot to talk about.
It reminded me of Comic-Con when things just
last year for MCU. Yeah. And so, and look, the first thing for High Republic doesn't happen until August, so we have plenty of time to talk about it. And so that's why we're really going to only bring up one thing per question to discuss, because we have weeks on weeks on weeks, especially in quarantine. We have weeks on weeks on weeks to kind of dive into this. And knowing Jacob as well, since Jacob's not going to be able to be here, he's going to want to talk about it at some point as well. So I will pose the question first to the guest, to the co-panel member. What is it about this announcement? What's the one thing that really stood out to you, or like the favorite thing that you heard when the announcement was made in late February?
The thing that stood out the most to me was the bad guys. The bad guys are not, well, I shouldn't say they're not Force users, because we don't know. I mean, they might have some channel to it, but they're not your red lightsaber Sith that you pretty much associate as these are the bad guys, these are the good guys. So to see those characters come up the Nile and them
By the way, what a clever, interesting name. Like, what the Nile? Clever, interesting name for a group of bad guys.
See, I go back and forth between liking it and not liking it.
And I'll probably get to that when I start talking about them, because it's more so the mythology behind them, I think, is what's going to happen. But I just dig the name. It's so different.
Yeah, it's very simple in a Star Wars world where you can't even pronounce 75% of what 75% of what they're saying. But that whole not being Sith, not being your traditional bad guy that we're used to, was the thing that I was like, whoa, wait, like that's way different than what we're used to. And they looked like they literally walked off of the sketch drawings for Mad Max Fury Road. Like they literally look exactly like that. Your dystopian bad guy, and I like that they all look different. And there doesn't seem to be like one general thing that like makes them all look the same, or they all like the Sith. You see them red lightsaber, black robe. These guys are wildly different than what we're used to. So I think that was the thing that stood out to me the most. Because I mean, I immediately go to, well, Jedi's have lightsabers. These guys don't have lightsabers. How are they going to compete with that? They're just going to like mow through them. Well, they're not. I mean, that's a pretty standard, obvious question that the authors, I'm assuming, already thought of. So I'm curious. It made me curious because we associate Jedi with Sith. Now it's Jedi and something else, and that's so different than what we know.
Well, it's not just that. It's you had mentioned that they're different. They're different bad guys. It's not the Empire or the First Order.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing, because in all the movies that we've seen so far, in all 9 of them, well, excuse me, all 11 of them, the Empire or the First Order have been the shadow that has been over all the stories.
Yeah.
Even in the spin-offs, right? Rogue One, obviously the Empire was there, but even in Solo, you had the Empire. Even though they weren't a major part of it, they were still featured with stormtroopers and, you know, security droids and stuff like that.
Yeah, you still knew they were there.
Exactly. And so they're taking a different approach by giving it like a pirate type of bad guy.
Mhm.
And the way they look and feel to me reminds me of the Cloud Riders from Solo.
Yeah.
A bad version
Very similar.
of Enfys Nest's crew. And that's awesome, because those characters were really cool, right? We only saw a little bit of them. They weren't bad guys, obviously, but just imagine a group like that, you know, is Solo, no pun intended, that does their own thing, that kind of pirate stuff, that wreaks havoc in the galaxy, and they're powerful enough to stand up to a group like the Jedi, and that's awesome. And you know, if you weren't going to bring them up as far as your favorite thing, they were for sure going to be brought up as mine.
Yeah.
Because they seem
I
to be
figured
given,
one of us would have it.
Yeah, I mean, it clearly has to, and
Yeah.
it seems like they're giving him the backstory that we want for bad guys. And I'm looking at a picture of him, and the one thing that's obviously stands out is the helmet aspect of it, the respirators and everything. And I know during the announcement they had said that that it's for a reason. Like, they have them for a reason, and I'm very interested to see what that reason is, and you know, how powerful they are, how they kind of operate. We know that. Now, I don't mistake. You know, correct me if I'm wrong on this one, but are they? Is it them or the Jedi that have a different use of light speed? Is it them?
They have found a way,
but it is them, right? Not the Jedi.
Alter the it's
okay.
They've found a way to alter light speed.
That's what I thought.
Something is happening with them controlling light speed.
Yeah, and that could be something that we've seen in the movies before. We don't know, but because it does take place 200 years beforehand. But having that in your back pocket and not having the Jedi be able to use that and them have that obviously creates problems for a lot of people. And you give them, like,
not even just the Jedi, the galaxy.
Yeah, exactly. And you had said, you know, they have this Mad Max vibe to them. Obviously, you know me, like that.
Hey, you hate that movie.
That's everything in a bad guy for me. Like, that's so perfect, and that fits in the world of Star Wars, especially 200 years before what we know of right now. And so,
the world or the galaxy is just being like not colonized, but like civilized in a way. So it's like, it's kind of perfect because it's not like Coruscant where it's like everything is so perfectly stacked and blah, blah, blah. It's still a mess. There's the worlds we know that probably haven't even been stepped on by a Jedi or something. So
yeah, I mean, we're going to learn so many new things, planets and people, and just all kinds of cool new additions that have never happened in Star Wars before. And a lot of that has to do with these bad guys. And like you said, it's interesting. I wonder if there's like a main leader, or if they're like just a clan of people that kind of wreak havoc. And if they do have a backstory where like someone or multiple are fighting for the leadership of them. Are they a people? Are they brought from different worlds? Like, what is going on with it? I'm very interested to kind of learn more about them for sure.
Yeah, it's almost kind of like genius in a way to use them as simple as they are, because like we've always dealt with pirates essentially. Like these are just going to be like the step up of
Mm-hmm.
a pirate. Like, I mean, these pirates are going toe to toe with the Jedi. So, I mean, these pirates are not your average Hondo or even like a smuggler like Han Solo. So, where it's like they're just doing, well, we're just going to go rob the ship. Like, for whatever reason, they're a force to be reckoned with. No pun intended. But yeah, it's almost so simple that it's brilliant in a way that it's like so. I mean, I keep using simple, but it's like that's literally what it is. They're obviously going to be more than just pirates, but like that's literally almost what we are seeing as they are. Just like these people that are just. I have a feeling they're going to be more like colonies, kind of, where it's like there's going to be multiple leaders.
Well, they
And
if I'm not wrong on this, they liken them to space Vikings, correct?
yes. Oh, what do you mean if you're right? You know exactly that they were space Vikings, because that was the first thing you freaked out when they
Yep.
said that they're
Yep.
space Vikings.
That's the
And
best part.
and Vikings, you can go into more. They are known for their taking over.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can only imagine what they used to compare these characters to, like the Viking TV shows, the Viking movies,
Game of
because
Thrones.
yeah, exactly, where it's this, and that's a very good comparison, because I have a feeling that's kind of what we're gonna see a little bit, where it's these different, everyone's kind of like fighting for something, like in a way where we're gonna see these like broken off groups, kind of, but they're all still bad guys. Because I really would doubt seeing this one overarching ruler, because that's so similar to an emperor or a supreme leader. So I I, I almost would prefer there be more than like maybe like a Daenerys, where she's in charge of this group, a Baratheon, they're in charge of that group, in that sense, where there's pockets of these bad guys, but every single one's as dangerous as the next. So, and that's what I'm hoping for, because, like I said, I don't want to see the almighty one ruler that's ruling over this whole thing, because that's just another emperor, or that's just another um like Chiss type thing, where it's just this one overarching. So, I mean, I could go on forever, but I mean, like you said, space Vikings.
Yeah, if it's anything like the Viking mythology is their rule of thumb is they want to expand and essentially dominate and take over land. And it's not just for the purpose of sport, but it's to expand their ranks and to farm. And they're essentially explorers on a more violent level.
Yeah,
Um, but the thing that always happens, whether it's a Viking TV show or mythology or whatever, is even though clans, and they do have clans and they have different kings for different cities and stuff like that, I even though clans work together, there is always another plan to undermine someone else,
yeah,
because they've been brought up to rule. That's their thing. And so if they implement that in Star Wars, like, that's very interesting. That
yeah.
is
I
that is
mean,
very interesting.
that would be, and that's perfect, because that's something we haven't seen, where we have people inside their own clan trying to take each other out for that top spot, which would make that interesting, because then who the Jedi go after? If someone took out this person, okay, now we have to switch plans and go after this
Hmm.
person, and that might happen multiple times. So Vikings is kind of like almost a brilliant thing, to like the idea, without bringing the cheesy Viking like stories that we see into the mythology of Star Wars, and I'm excited to see it.
And that kind of also leads to the one thing that really stood out to me, and it has to do with the mythology. They just like they likened the bad guys to space Vikings, they explained and described the Jedi of this time as the Jedi of
I was hoping you were gonna. You and I thought of the same two, and hoped one of us would pick the other one. Perfect. Sorry, I didn't mean
so
to cut you off.
no, you're good. That's what this is all about. So they likened the Jedi of this time to the Jedi of the Round Table. And again, this goes back to the swords and sandals stuff of what I love, Vikings
Mm-hmm.
and Game of Thrones and the Final Kingdom and that type of stuff, King Arthur. Um, and if they implement that into Star Wars, you know, there's an incredible wealth of mythology that you can play with not
Mm-hmm.
just the aspect of how they operate and rule of thumbs and stuff like that, but like what if a lightsaber or multiple lightsabers or something is similar to what Excalibur was, and
Yeah.
like maybe I'm not saying it's the dark saber, but what if there's something out there in the galaxy that these Jedi know about or are searching for, and so are the Nile, and that's
Yeah.
kind of like what the plot point is of this story or whatever. Um, it's going to be really cool. And the cool thing is, like, they're not actually going to have a round table, but the round table for the Jedi of this time is that massive space station that was in the concept art called Starlight Beacon. And that
Mm-hmm.
seems to be the center point of all this. And we know that at the end of this story, this era, or even in the beginning, it could happen at the very beginning, that the Starlight Beacon gets destroyed.
Yeah.
And then that's kind of like they're calling it a cataclysmic event that kind of catapults this entire era into something else. And it almost feels like that may be it. But
Yeah.
I mean, Jedi Knights of the Round Table just sounds so incredibly badass.
It's insane. It is absolutely like you get chills when you think
Mhm.
about that. And
Just imagine for a second them, like, they do the swords in King
uh,
Arthur, right? And they put their lightsabers down in a circle. Are you
it,
kidding me?
it would be insane. It's I mean, the pictures we saw of the concept art, just the pictures alone, like of them all standing there, like holding the lightsabers
Or
together,
lift the
or
one, the
them,
one of them lifting it up. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
There, I mean, it just gets you pumped up. Like, holy moly! Like that's exactly like Knights of the Round Table type stuff. Um, and it's cool because going to your like dark saberish type thing, I I don't and I don't think there's going to be a weapon per se that they're going to be going after just because there are so many different types of lightsabers just in the concept art that they showed you. One of
Mhm.
them is literally has a black lightsaber.
Yeah, no,
And
that's
so
something that I was going to touch on, is that the lightsabers that we saw in the concept art, they're very similar to how swords look, and they're
yeah,
different styles and stuff like that. And the one that we saw that looked very similar to the dark saber.
yeah. It's it almost is like they're taking everything we know and just throwing it at the wall and just been like, you're going to see everything. Like everything is exploded on the wall. You're going to see everything and see what we're doing because we rarely see anything outside of a green, a blue, a purple, and a red. We've seen a yellow lightsaber once for 3 seconds. They literally just went, here's every color.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, I'm looking at an image right now that has. So I know that there's not on the page I'm looking at. It doesn't have the one of all
correct
of
me
them
if
that.
I'm wrong. They even have a white one in the picture, too.
So
Or no?
that image isn't on the page, but I
Okay.
believe they do. In the image that I'm talking about that I can't see, they do have an orange one in that image.
Yep.
Um, but the ones that I'm looking at right now, so we have a green, we have a blue, we see a yellow, we have a purple, and then we look like there looks to be like there's one that's pink. It's hard to tell between purple and pink, but it definitely looks a little
So,
pink.
have you, without spoiling, how did you give up on Fallen Order?
I haven't given up. I just haven't gotten there yet. I
Okay,
know that they
because
canonized a lot of stuff, including that.
they very much canonized a
Almost
lot more
everything.
colors.
Yeah, that's which
There's
is fair.
there's they pretty much gave a light shade of every color you already know. And that's where when I saw the like pinkish one that you were talking about,
Mhm.
I was kind of like, oh, that looks just like one of the options from that. But I mean, the picture you're talking about, like the black stood out the most. They're like, we're going to go there.
Yeah, but we don't know what that means, or like
exactly
if it's just there for aesthetics or whatever. But on top of the colors, like I had mentioned, you can also see the different style of hilts. Like you don't just see the double-sided lightsaber like a Maul, but you also see the real crossguard lightsaber where it's not coming out of the sides, but it's physically part of the hilt. And so is that like what I'm getting at is, are some of these hilts more like legendary than the others, or
I'm assuming you're looking at the main one, right? Where
they're all lifting it up. Yeah.
Those and it goes very much to what you're saying of they literally look like knights, because it doesn't the Kylo Ren looking ones. I don't think lightsabers are going to be coming out the sides of those.
No, not at all. No,
they literally look like swords.
Yeah, I agreed. They look like the part of the sword that covers the hand.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. So I just think that and even the way that these Jedi are dressed. First of all, they all look different. They don't look like in the classic robes, right? Yeah. But they have like this old school feel to them that feels. And it's weird because it's only 200 years in the past, but they're already giving us an idea of like 200 years in Star Wars time is a long time.
Very long time.
It just by the way that these look, even the bad guys, the Nile, it looks like it's a very long time in the past, even though it's only 200 years.
Yeah. I think one of the things I also really liked and appreciated was the amount of different species of Jedi you see. There's
the Wookiee.
Yeah, a Wookiee one. I mean, there's some ones I don't know what they are. Like, I mean, there's even ones that are hidden. Like their faces are hidden. We don't know what they look like. I'm looking at that one where they make like the V and then they're all holding like this. Yeah. They even have a wolf at the bottom of it in the picture.
And the Lothal wolf, yeah.
Yeah. So that we might be seeing more of those. I mean,
well, we know that they have a huge connection to the Force.
Yeah, and I mean, there's the one on the far left. If you're looking at the picture, she literally looks like a ghost holding the Jedi, the dark ray style Jedi Temple Guard lightsaber with two white blades.
I just found this image, so yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, the amount of like variety, and their weapons do not look like typical ones we've seen. Like I'm looking at one of the Dothmir Knight Brothers or whatever. Yeah. I don't know what they're going to be called. He's got like looks like a giant like
tail bone.
Yeah. Like we've never seen anyone have something attached to their lightsaber, like a trinket-ish or type thing. Or even look at the one on the far right, the black lightsaber. Hers is huge.
Yeah.
It's huge.
It's going to be very interesting to see them.
Yeah.
Or not, I guess not see them, but I mean, see them in comics, but more hear about them.
Yeah. It's taking what we know and saying like, nope, we're going to do it different. And I appreciate that because we want different. We want that same classic feel, but something new. And this is definitely new to anything we've seen.
I'm 100% with you. And I cannot wait to hear about it, read about it, listen to it audio wise, as far as audiobooks go. But that's the conversation for now on that question.
Audiobooks are going to be
awesome. And I will say this before we move on. And this, I guess, I'll save that just in case it leads into my next topic. So I'll save that for the conversation.
Fair enough.
But yeah, let's go and move on to our second part of the show. And that is based around what we are looking forward to the most outside of what we just talked about, what we are looking forward to the most after now that we know what High Republic is, what it's going to feature, even though there's still a lot of mystery around it, what is, just the things that kind of pop into our head that we're excited for that we think may happen going forward. Brian, since I just brought my topic up, I'll shoot it back to you, man. What is the one thing that you're looking forward to with the High Republic?
The thing that I am looking forward to the most is what they said in the video. And that is specifically the quote that says, what scares the Jedi? The first thing I thought of was, what scares the Jedi? Their opponents don't even have lightsabers. Like, what? Why are these bad guys so bad that they're scaring the Jedi? Like, so if that's what they were basing this whole thing off of, that's insane. Like, these characters, like Sith, we've known Sith to be the ultimate test of evil to the Jedi. These guys, from what we know, these bad guys, they don't even have lightsabers. So what are they doing that is so scary that it scares the Jedi? And that almost blows my mind in a way, just because that's nothing like we've ever seen. The Sith were essentially what scares the Jedi.
And the more interesting part of that is that in the same in the announcement, they said that the Jedi are at the height of what they were.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously they could be higher back in the Old Republic days once we get to that point, but they made sure that we know that these Jedi in this group, you know, if we want to call them the Old Jedi Order or the Old Order, that they are at the height of what they were supposed to be and what we know them as, usually not the, you know, the blinded ones that we knew in the prequels, but they were a force to be reckoned with, and they didn't answer to the Republic, and they didn't do that type of stuff. They were a force to be reckoned with. And to say that something out there during this phase, if you will, because this is just phase one, that's something out there that's not the Sith that we know of, that something can scare them. And that's crazy to think about, because what could they come up with that is more scarier than a Sith in all of his rage or her rage? It's got to be massively powerful.
Yeah, because I mean, they could have just gone easy and given us what we wanted. Gone back to the Knights of the Old Republic, the height of the Sith and their armies, the Sith armies, and that would have been like, okay, that would scare the Jedi. That makes sense. No, they went to make sure you don't know what it is that's going to scare the Jedi and leave you like, well, if they're not massive armies of Sith, what is it that's going to scare them? What would scare a Jedi at the time of their highest peak? So it's a very like daunting question to think about. Like, it's like, what? Like, and the thing that every time I think about it, that blows my mind is they don't have lightsabers to go up against them. So what is it that's so scary? What are they doing?
Do you think that it is something that they're searching for, or something they stumble across, or like a friendly to the Nile that just happens to, like, I know that we're all hoping for Old Republic, but maybe this is where the Sith really come into the fold. Do they already know about the Sith? Like, is it the Sith? Like, what are you thinking?
I have no idea. I think this is what that question is going to be, and I hope this isn't leading or segueing into yours, but I truly think what scares the Jedi is going to be what this great disaster is.
So you don't think that the great disaster is the destruction of the station?
I do, but the logical part of me goes, that's too simple. Like, what? Like, that's so easy to think of, that like I almost feel like they would have just told us that if it was that simple.
That's fair. Yeah.
Just because, I mean, it's so easy to think. They made like this big deal about Starlight Beacon, blah blah blah, and every time they showed it, it's the great disaster, and there was a picture of it, so it was almost kind of just so obvious that I'm starting to think that there's something else that has happened that's going to be the great disaster.
Maybe the destruction of this Order of Jedi.
Yeah, I don't know. I could also see it being very much so maybe that is the great disaster, and the disaster is that they are all now spread out and have no way of contacting each other or getting in touch with each other, because they don't know. This is a very new
The destruction of hyperspace.
yeah, type thing like that. So they just don't like, they made it very clear that like hyperspace routes are not something that are active right
Yeah,
now.
the creation of lightspeed lanes is what they call
Yes.
them, lightspeed lanes. It hasn't been made yet.
So that's where I was thinking like, okay, maybe the great disaster, the destruction of that beacon is the beginning of it, but it's not really the heart of what it's going to be. And that part is going to be what scares the Jedi. That's what I'm thinking is going to end up, because it almost seems too simple to be like the great disaster and then it just be the Starlight Beacon destroyed.
Yeah,
There's got to be some type of repercussion that's going to be what scares them.
I don't want it to be another prequel situation where, um, not to say that I'm not talking about a purge. I'm talking about something that happens that is so simple
Jarring.
to the. No, I guess it's hard to explain, but it's so simple to where you think to yourself, well, why didn't the Jedi think of that? Something
Yeah.
like that. Like why didn't they see that? Because that's what happened in the prequels. Like as adults now looking at the movies, we're like, well, the Jedi were stupid. Like they were
Yeah.
dumb. They overlooked everything. They thought they were better than they were. I don't want another situation where that. I want it to like legitimately be something where it's just too powerful for them to overcome, and
Yeah.
it's literally like you said, a disaster. Like that's what I
Yeah.
want.
I think there's more to this great disaster than something as simple as the Starlight Beacon was destroyed. Because then that's almost kind of like, okay, yeah, that's a big deal, I guess, but like, okay, there's got to be more to it that scares the Jedi than
No, I'm with
just
you.
that
I'm with
beacon
you.
being destroyed.
That's awesome. Something that scares the Jedi when they're at the height of their power, and they're called the Jedi Knights of the Round Table. Like that's awesome.
Yeah, so that's where
Especially
I'm
with
going,
especially with a character like Ava Chris.
dude. These characters, the names that are coming out for them too are just the Wookiee one. I have it in my
So
phone.
you're caught up on the Kylo Ren comic, correct?
Oh yeah,
So and I don't know
I'm
if
caught up on everything except, well, the new era of stuff except for bounty hunters.
okay. So I don't know if you may have heard this or whatever, but
Are you going to talk about the holocrons?
it's no well no the well the blonde woman in the holocron.
Yeah.
It's 100% Ava Chris. It's got to be.
Oh, I don't even think that's a question at this point.
Well, I mean, it hasn't been like confirmed, but she was never given a name, which is why I say it like that.
Yeah, and I love that all we know is her saying, "Hello there, traveler."
Mm-hmm. But
So
which is what I said. They're explorers.
exactly, and that's what makes me think that the destruction of this station leaves them stranded and spread out in the Nile is probably this big bad group that's going around trying to pick them off.
Maybe the
Because that would be
station.
dope.
Maybe they haven't gotten to a point in technology or the galaxy yet where they can hyperspace from their personal ships, and the hub is the station like an airport.
Yeah, yeah.
And the
I mean,
destruction of that station cuts off all hyperspace.
yeah, I could totally see that, and
That'd
I
be
think
interesting.
that's kind of where they're going. Because if you add all the things together, like it seems pretty. Hyperspace is clearly going to be important, and they made that kind of an important thing because, like they said, the galaxy's unexplored at this point. They don't
Mhm.
have the routes and stuff like that.
Mhm.
What is the hardest thing to do to navigate without a map? Get directions, right? So, I mean, if they're all stranded, this order on different planets, and you have this big bad group going to just pick you off one by one, that's kind of a story that I'd be down to hear. It's almost, but the only thing is, it's almost kind of similar to the Purge, Jedi Purge ish type thing,
Not really
but
though.
exactly, but not enough where you're just like, okay, it's similar. Here we go again.
Yeah.
It's
There's definitely enough story beats you can add in there that makes it totally dissimilar.
Yeah, so yeah, that's where I'm curious at is what scares the Jedi, what that really means. What is it that's going to be scary to the Jedi? That's the
Cool.
biggest thing that
I'm with you.
pinpoint it
I'm
on.
with you. We're on the same page. That's definitely one up there for me too. For me, it's not so much the one thing I'm looking forward to the most. I'll just say it flat out is the fact that we are finally getting to a point in different Star Wars media that, and when I say that, I mean not the movies or the television shows, that the comic books and books aren't catering to those movies and television shows.
Yes.
This is something completely new, and it reminds me back to the Legends days, of the Thrawn trilogy and all that stuff back in the day, where a writer could literally come in and write any Star Wars story they want. Now, it's different now, obviously, because it's still canon. They kind of have to make sure that they're staying on point with certain things, but they're coming in and they're creating something totally new that has nothing to do with what we've seen so far.
Yep.
And that is huge because the
Yep.
creativity, and we've been calling for it, for a while now, that we want to see something new. And that's why the Skywalker saga had to end. We want to move on a little bit. We want new stuff in this galaxy, I should say. And this is the perfect way to do that.
Yep.
Now, we know that it's only for a certain amount of time, right? This is just phase one. So if it works out well, they'll go on to phase two. We don't know how long it'll happen for. And it could very well spawn off movies and television shows down the road. But this is something that these writers like Charles Soule, who is fantastic in the Star Wars world. He's writing the first book, Light of the Jedi, right? Comes out August 25th. Then you have someone like Claudia Gray, who is renowned in the galaxy of Star Wars writing. She's writing a book called Into the Dark, another YA book, and there's no doubt it's not going to be good.
Yep.
They're doing a comic book, they're doing a couple more books, and it just they have this group. Yes, they have this group that have come together since 2018. This all started in 2014 discussions, but they finally came together in 2018 to be like, okay, look, fans want something new. What do we do? And this was the idea, and it's brilliant. Yeah. It's brilliant because we now know that going forward in books and comic books, you don't have to read something to know about what's happening in the movies. Yep. Right? We've had that happen a couple times in the past for a couple books. And look, there's been some great novels and some comic books have been great. But a lot of the stuff that has come out has said the journey to the Force Awakens or the journey to the Rise of Skywalker.
Every single one of those movies had something that said
exactly. And
Journey
this
to the
is
Force Awakens.
And this is totally new. It's fresh. It's brilliant. And it just leaves me excited because we have no idea what's happening. We're going to have no idea. It's like reading brand new novels or going back to the Legends days and picking those up and having no idea what's going on because it's just someone picking up a story or picking up a piece of paper, writing a story they want to write in Star Wars, and us just like watching a movie for the first time. And I'm super pumped about it.
Yeah, I can agree more with you because it kind of kills those people dead in the water that are like The Last Jedi. This isn't how a Star Wars movie is supposed to be. And then you get the ones that say The Force Awakens just a copy of A New Hope. That kills this argument. You can't compare this to something else. It's a whole new thing that we've never seen. Never, I mean, they might eventually bring in a character like Yoda who's probably alive like this, but if they do, it's not going to be for probably a long time. So you can't go, that's not how Yoda is supposed to be. It's all brand new. You cannot bitch at these authors. You shouldn't have made the character that way. I'm sorry. We created the character. So it almost is kind of brilliant in the way that it, for the most part, kind of like
shuts people up.
Shuts people up that say like, oh, well, this isn't Star Wars. Well, guess what? You're right. It's a new type of Star Wars. It's something different. These stories have not been told. They're not taking old Legends stories and twisting them like Thrawn. Thrawn was a highly beloved, popular old Legends character that they manipulated and maneuvered so he can be in it. They're not doing that with these ones. These Legends characters are not going to be around at this time. There are not, to my knowledge, anything in Legends in this period. There was no such thing as a High Republic. So it's brilliant because it shuts them up. And because that's what's poisoning Star Wars is there's the negativity about people want it to be something new. People want it to be old like the old ones. Then they want to balance in the middle. This says take it and like it, or move on it and just enjoy the Skywalker saga for what it was. Because they're clearly moving on to different things. Mandalorian, people love it. Has right now doesn't really have very much to do with
Nothing. It
the
has nothing.
Skywalker saga. Yeah, I'm saying, but something might transform into the future of it. But right now, people are loving it. It has nothing to do with it. Can you imagine? Now you have this whole brand new time period. There's nothing you can compare it to. There might be little, like I said, drops of mentions of things that we know, like Coruscant, or it's almost just the foundations of what we know, Jedi.
But it's not at that point.
Hyperspace.
At that point, it's not even going to be the Coruscant or whatever of what we know now.
Exactly.
It's still
Exactly.
brand new.
So it's genius in the way of it was. I will say it's very smart. As much as we wanted the Old Republic, if not done right, the whole nonsense would have kept going. This isn't like the video game. This isn't like the movies. Blah blah blah. This shuts that down for a little bit and creates new fans, new people that they're going to be young kids that maybe this is their beginning of Star Wars, and then they come into the Skywalker saga. It's genius in the sense of just it's new, it's fresh, and it kills that toxic. If people find a way to be toxic about it, those are the people you stay away from, because those are not the ones that are the true Star Wars fans. They're looking for something to bitch about.
Agreed.
And because if you find things, sure, you may not like a book, you may not like a story, but you're liking that just because of your own reasons. There are going to be far more people that are enjoying this new stuff than there are negative complaining about stuff, comparing it to the Skywalker saga stuff.
Agreed.
And I just pulled up it. Charles Soule did confirm that Avar Kriss was the holocron voice.
Oh, perfect.
So, but yeah, it's so awesome that we're getting new stuff, things that people haven't seen. Because you know what? In the long run, it's probably better to kind of shut the loud mouths up and then go back to something like the Old Republic than just going, all right, we're going for Skywalker Saga, the biggest, baddest movie franchise right now, and we're going to make our own one. People didn't like it. All right, let's go for the next favorite thing that Star Wars people love, the Old Republic. Screw that up. Star Wars is dead. It's done.
Well, and you know what the best part about it is that they are, to even shut them up a little bit more, they're not touching movies or television with this.
Yeah.
It's straight print media. And the true Star Wars fans are going to come out they're going to come out in droves for it, or they're going to read it and really give a good opinion outside of the trolls that watch the movie and then slash it on social media. The real fans, us, other people around the world, they're going to buy these books. They're going to read it like an actual fan, and they're just going to say, yeah, I liked it, or you know what, I wasn't a fan of it. And that's okay.
Yep. Because those are the ones that are taking the time. It's so easy to just flip on your TV, sit on your butt, and watch something and go, I didn't like it.
Yep.
Or that was cool. All right. But you now have to invest time to sit there and read a book, listen to the audio, because those audiobooks anywhere from like 6 to 15 hours takes, unless you're a speed reader, it's probably going to take you around that time to finish one of these books. Comic books, you're going to have to go out and buy it, read it. If you want to keep continuing knowing what's going on, you're going to have to keep reading it. So, the Pup of Ren. But yeah, it would have been a huge mistake to go into this new territory as a TV show or a movie.
Agreed. Again, if it works, they could very well do that down the road, but they're not doing it right now.
Yeah, because it then becomes a very easy type of thing where you're fighting the keyboard warriors, where they watched it and now I'm going to go online and trash it.
Agreed.
Because If you're going to go online and trash it after spending 15 hours listening or reading to a book, sure, you deserve it. You spent the 15 hours putting into it to do it. Say what you didn't like about it. Give your opinion. But those people that sit there for 2 hours watching a movie and then bashing on it, this gets rid of that whole entire thing.
Yep. Cool. All right. Well, any final thoughts on today's topics?
No, I went off on a
No,
heated
dude.
rant right
You know
there.
what? I'll clip it out. I'll put it on the channel. I'll probably get 5 million views. Who knows?
Yeah, it's just a brilliant part because the things that people complain about the most is comparisons.
Mhm.
Comparisons between old stuff and new stuff. Well, guess what? You're only getting new stuff now, and you have nothing old to compare it to.
There won't be
And
a single name we know of other than Yoda in this stuff.
Exactly. And that's what has spun so much toxic stuff. It's 'cause people have their nostalgia of, oh, that's my character. Oh no, you ruined it. Guess what? You now get to like new characters and create your own opinions about them and fall in love with it all over again. And that's the best gift that they could give us. And that's
Agreed.
exactly what we're getting.
Yeah, I'm pumped, man.
Although they left on the board, if you watch that clip, dinosaurs in space, and I'm still pissed off about that.
Yeah, oh, I know. It's, you know what? We'll get it eventually. We'll get something eventually. So,
Probably.
but yeah, I'm glad we finally were able to talk about this. It's been 5 weeks in the making. As I mentioned, you know, if you guys have not watched this before or you missed a couple, we recapped the Skywalker saga, which delayed this video. And as I mentioned up top, we will more than likely do this again because Jacob is 100% going to want to get his thoughts out there. After he does a little bit more research on it, because he's just as much of a fan as we are, and he definitely loves this stuff. And he's a big reader. We all three of us read the comics. We audiobook the books, and so we will definitely review this stuff as they come out. It's months away, but if quarantine is still going on, we will definitely blaze through these things and review them on the show. So
it's kind of almost brilliant too, because outside of the comic books, like, maybe, I mean, this is something you can still do and read and enjoy in quarantine.
Totally.
So
cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, guys, there it is. Yeah, there it is. This week's Padawan podcast covering the High Republic. Some favorite things that we heard about the announcement and things we are looking forward to the most after the announcement. Make sure you guys leave some thoughts in the comments on what your favorite moments were about the announcement, the things you're looking forward to. Maybe you don't like the announcement. We'd love to hear why. On top of that, you guys can follow us not just on YouTube, but all audio platforms as well. So Anchor, Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, Breaker, all that good stuff. Just search Apocaflix Movies or Padawan Podcast, and you will find us on there. Hit us up on Twitter and Facebook, posting not just our video links, but, you know, interacting and posting some other new stuff as well. So, Brian, as always, thank you for joining me on Padawan, man. Really, really appreciate it.
Comments. I want to talk about this.
Yes, this is definitely one that both of us we want to talk about. So we'd love to hear from you guys, whether it's on video or audio. So as always, thank you guys for joining us on the Padawan podcast. That is Brian. I am Jake. We are available every Tuesday on this video. This is when the show drops, as well as every other video we have on the channel. Again, thank you for joining us. We'll see you guys next week, and may the force be with you.